There's so much advice out there about how to change your limiting beliefs, right? You've probably heard lots of talk like, if you want to overcome your limiting beliefs, you have to change your thoughts. So, a lot of advice out there treats your beliefs like thoughts you need to wrestle with, or overpower, or subdue through positive thinking or mindset shifts. But from a somatic perspective, your limiting beliefs aren't just faulty thoughts. They're living memories of who you had to be and what you had to believe in order to stay safe, loved, or connected in overwhelming circumstances earlier in life. And these beliefs live deep within your body, your nervous system, and your subconscious self. You don't just think about them, you believe them implicitly and look at the world through their perspective automatically. They color your assumptions, expectations, and interpretations of everything in your life before a single conscious thought even forms. And this is such an important thing to understand because the deeper, usually subconscious parts of you that carry these limiting beliefs don't respond to rationalizations or affirmations or positive thinking. There's so much more to you than just your thoughts. And these deeper parts need deeper presence, deeper compassion, and a deeper understanding to actually heal. So that's what we're going to explore today. We'll take a closer look at the implicit narratives that live in your body, in your tissues, your breath, and the quiet spaces within. And we'll talk about how understanding them somatically allows you to work with your limiting beliefs in a deeply effective, compassionate, and integrative way. Welcome to Somatic Healing Meditations, the podcast that helps you regulate your nervous system, deepen your healing journey, and feel better in your body. I'm Karenna with Hello Inner Light, and I'm so happy you're here. I'm a somatic healing coach who specializes in compassionate, body-centered processing that helps you heal the wounds that are holding you back. So if that's the kind of content you need more of in your life, please subscribe to this podcast and join me every Friday on this beautiful journey out of your head and into your more embodied and authentic self. Today's episode is part of my Your Healing, Your Questions series, where I answer listener questions about somatic healing, emotional processing, and nervous system regulation. So there's no meditation in today's episode, but tomorrow I'll be releasing a brand new parts work meditation for releasing limiting beliefs, a beautiful guided practice to help you go deeper with what we'll be exploring here today. Okay, so today's question comes from Olivia, who asked something so beautifully insightful and tender, something I think so many of us can relate to. She said, I recently realized that I have an inner belief that if I don't take care of everyone, no one will love and take care of me. It's really upsetting to see how this inner belief has fueled many of my actions and personality traits over the years. But now that I understand this about myself, how do I move to change the belief? First of all, thank you so much for your question, Olivia. It's such an important one, and I really want to acknowledge the depth of awareness that's already here. You've already taken such a big step in being able to recognize this belief, to name it, and to notice the ways that it's shaped your life. And this kind of awareness is a wonderful first step. And I truly think so many people can relate to what you're describing, even if the words of the belief sound a little different. So for some, it might be, I have to earn love, or I'm not good enough, or it's safer if I don't need too much. And these are all variations of the same deep pattern. They're all ways that we learned to stay safe, accepted, or connected in environments that didn't always meet our needs. But here's where many people get stuck. Once we see the belief, the mind immediately wants to fix it. We start thinking things like, okay, now that I know this, I just need to stop believing it. I need to think differently. I'll replace it with a better thought. But that approach rarely works for long, and it can even feel like a kind of self-gaslighting because we're trying to think our way out of something that wasn't created by thinking in the first place. Because again, our limiting beliefs aren't just thoughts, they're deep implicit narratives. So, what I call implicit narratives are the deep subconscious stories that live inside of us and quietly shape how we experience everything. They're like invisible lenses through which we see ourselves, others, and the world. And these narratives were patterned into our cells and our psyches when we were very young. They're based on how we were treated, what we had to do to feel loved or safe, and what we learned was expected of us in order to belong. Over time, those experiences became internalized, woven into the body, into the nervous system, and into the way we breathe and move and feel. Our implicit narratives define the expectations we carry about life, how safe it feels to be seen, how worthy we feel of love, and how much care we expect from others. They form long before our minds can make sense of them, and they're automatic and embodied. And so they pop in before a single conscious thought even has the chance to form. And that's why they hold so much power. They shape the way we interpret other people's words and actions. They influence what we tolerate, what we avoid, what we strive for, and what we believe we deserve. In many ways, they determine how much safety and joy we allow ourselves to experience. And they affect our conscious thoughts, but they don't live in the logical mind. They live in your unconscious feelings and knowings, in your breath, in your posture, in the chronic tension in your neck or your hips or your shoulders, in your nervous stomach, your heavy heart, or your racing thoughts. So, when we find ourselves repeating old patterns or feeling stuck in a limiting belief, it's not because we're failing or doing it wrong. It's because an implicit narrative formed long ago is still quietly shaping how we perceive the world. And the beautiful thing is, once we start to recognize these narratives in a compassionate, body centered way, they can begin to change. And before I talk about how to utilize the somatic approach to shift your limiting beliefs, I just want to make a quick, heartfelt mention of this. This kind of work, meeting the parts of you that carry these old beliefs with compassion and helping them feel safe enough to soften, this is at the heart of what we do in my 6-month group coaching program, Rooted and Resilient. It's such a special program because it's a small, deeply supported space where we practice going beneath the surface of the mind into the body and subconscious, and meeting the younger parts and the protective parts who have been carrying old beliefs and helping them feel safe enough to soften and update. Inside Rooted and Resilient, we practice body-centered parts work, somatic emotional processing, and gentle nervous system repair. We tend to the root, so patterns shift from the inside out. So if you felt like you understand so much in your head, yet your body still braces, overgives, or shuts down, this is where we slow down together and create the conditions for real change. So enrollment is open now, and there's an early bird discount available until the 18th of November. So if you're feeling called, please check out the information in the show notes, and I'd love to see you in Rooted and Resilient. So how do we actually begin to shift these limiting beliefs? From a somatic perspective, we want to go beneath the belief to what's living underneath it, to the feelings, sensations, and parts of our consciousness that are still carrying the emotional weight of earlier experiences. Because every limiting belief is being held in place by something deeper in the body. When we tune in somatically, we often begin to sense the younger parts of us who first carried these feelings. These are the parts that learned what love required and what safety demanded. The part who felt invisible and began to believe that her voice didn't matter. The part who felt rejected and concluded that being fully herself was too risky. The part who felt utterly alone and decided that self-sufficiency was the only way to survive. And, as Olivia described so beautifully, the part who learned to overfunction and take care of everyone else in hopes that she might somehow earn care from someone else. And these beliefs are not random. They were formed by parts of us that were doing the best they could with what they had. These parts learned to organize around our pain, creating rules and beliefs that once kept us safe. And this is why mindset work falls short. It tries to rearrange the words without tending to the wounds underneath. It asks you to replace a belief without meeting the part of you who created it. But that part isn't usually ready to let go of the belief until it feels met, understood, and safe in a new way. But in the body-centered parts work process I teach, which is at the heart of my work and at the center of what we explore in Rooted and Resilient, we don't try to fix or analyze these parts. We actually meet them through the body. We sense where they live within. We listen to what they hold, and we bring compassion to their experience. Because the truth is, no matter how much these limiting beliefs have held you back, these parts are never holding on to them for no reason. Each one of them is carrying something that once felt too overwhelming to face alone. These parts absorbed the confusion, heartbreak, and loneliness of moments when there wasn't enough safety, support, or love to process what was happening. So they found ways to protect you. They created beliefs that helped you make sense of the world, beliefs that may not be true anymore, but that once made everything just a little bit more survivable. And if your parts could have let go of these beliefs already, they would have. These patterns are never a sign of resistance. They're a sign of loyalty. Loyalty to what once kept you safe. And the reason they don't give up these beliefs easily is because they're still holding the pain or fear or unmet needs from the past all by themselves. They haven't yet felt that their burden can be shared. They haven't yet felt that it's safe to put it down. And these parts long to be seen and heard, to be met with compassion, and to be welcomed back into belonging inside of you. And this is what somatic healing offers, a body-centered way of working with these parts. We don't try to talk them out of their beliefs or argue with them from the mind. We meet them in the language they understand, the language of felt sense, of breath, of emotion, and of caring presence. And meeting them like this is a skill that we can learn and cultivate. Because we've lived in the disembodied world of mindset work and positive thinking, we need to learn to relate to ourselves and our parts in a new way. And that's a big part of what I try to share on this podcast, because it's truly a completely different paradigm of healing. When we bring awareness and compassion to where these parts live in the body, maybe the heaviness in our chest, the tightness in our throat, a dull ache in our stomach, then something begins to shift. Our parts start to trust that they no longer have to hold this all alone. And this is what I mean when I talk about body-centered parts work. It's about connecting with the deeper layers of your experience, the emotional, sensory, and subconscious layers that live in your body. And then letting these parts know that you're here with them now. They're not alone anymore. So in tomorrow's parts work meditation for releasing limiting beliefs, we'll be using a process called regenerating images in memory, or RIM, to help you do just that. It's a powerful somatic emotional processing technique that helps you drop beneath the conscious mind and connect with what's held in your body and subconscious. So instead of analyzing your beliefs, RIM helps you feel what's underneath them and then gently regenerate new experiences within that allow for emotional and physiological release. It's a deeply compassionate process, and it's one of the most effective ways I've ever found to create real, lasting change. So, as you listen to that meditation tomorrow, or even as you sit with what we've talked about today, try to hold these three compassionate truths about your parts. Your parts are carrying these limiting beliefs for a reason. If they could have let them go already, they would have. And all of your parts deserve compassion, love, and support. And when we meet our inner world from that place of understanding, the parts that once felt separate begin to soften, the body begins to release, and healing, the kind that creates real change from the inside out, becomes possible. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I just want to leave you with this reminder. Lasting change doesn't come from trying to change your thoughts. It comes from learning to relate differently to yourself, to your emotions, and to the parts of you that still carry pain from the past. Because healing is about presence and attunement. It's about listening to what lives underneath the belief, feeling it in your body, and offering it the compassion and understanding that it's been waiting for. And when you learn to do that, the parts of you that have been holding these beliefs so tightly start to realize that they're not alone anymore. They begin to soften, to connect, and to release what they've been guarding all of this time. And as they do, the beliefs that once felt absolute start to loosen. The emotions that once felt overwhelming begin to move. You start to feel more like yourself, not the self shaped by protection, but the self that's always been waiting beneath it all. And that's the deeper promise of this work. We don't just change our thoughts, we change the relationship we have with our inner world. And from that relationship, everything else begins to change. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'd love to hear what about this resonated with you. What stood out? Or what are you beginning to see differently about your own limiting beliefs? Please let me know in the comments. As a reminder, you're invited to join me in Rooted and Resilient, my 6-month group coaching program, where we dive into this healing paradigm deeply. Rooted and Resilient is a beautiful space where you'll learn to meet the parts of yourself that carry old wounds and beliefs and help them feel safe enough to soften, update, and heal. And it's by far the deepest and most transformative way to work with me. Enrollment is open now, and there's still time to join us before the early bird pricing ends. You can find all of the information in the show notes. Plus, if you haven't already, you're always invited to enroll in my free mini course, the Feel It to Heal It mini course, to experience even more regulation, interconnection, and clarity. And I hope you'll come back tomorrow for my parts work meditation for releasing limiting beliefs, where you'll have a chance to actually feel and experience this process for yourself using regenerating images and memory. It's an incredibly powerful practice, and I think it will help you connect with these deeper parts of you in such a gentle and meaningful way. And let me know what you think about this new series, the Your Healing, Your Questions episodes, where I give more educational content. And if you have a question you'd like me to answer, I'd love to include your voice and your journey in this space. Thank you again for spending this time with me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to the podcast and also rate and review it. You could also send this episode to a friend who you think would enjoy it. And don't forget to join me every Friday on this beautiful journey out of your head and into your more embodied and authentic self.